Hi, good day, good night, good evening, depending on what time you happen to be watching this. Welcome to another episode of House of Stars. I'm your girl Starre, and today, as you can see from the title, I am doing a video on a topic that a lot of my clients come to me about, ask me about. A lot of people that actually are attracted to watching my channels or even other psychic YouTubers is they want to know if they have an intuitive gift. So you can see from the title, this video is called, Do You Have an Intuitive Gift? So I thought I would put a collection of like 5 different things or signs that would tell you that you do have an intuitive gift. Of course, naturally as humans, we all have this innate ability to have a supernatural gift when it comes to being able to tap into realms that are outside of ourselves or into situations outside of our everyday norm or the mundane, so to speak. So there are some people that are highly sensitive. There's some people that are receptive. There's some people that are just in between. It just all depends on, of course, a number of different things, whether it be something that is genetic, whether it be something that you're into, depending on what you're into. Like, say, for example, if you're a person that maybe is like a regular, everyday, mundane person, but practices yoga, which is a form of meditation that activates these gifts, we don't know. But I'm going to go through a list of the questions or the signs that you have these gifts. So I'm going to start off with questions, and then I will kind of expand on each one and just see how many of them you've actually hit. So I have them listed here because I couldn't find a piece of paper to write them down. But the first sign that I'll usually a lot of people that have an intuitive gift or something, a trait they would have, is, do you find yourself feeling deep sensations or sensitive in your environment? So one thing about me before I actually really opened up my gifts is that I noticed that I had and even till now, because this is very something that's a common practice of people that are actually psychic readers that we have to consciously do, I would always feel ungrounded and kind of get in a space of anxiety a lot. It's being around people or being around situations where we're kind of outside of my norm or energy norm. Like, I found myself in a space where, like, if somebody was depressed or aggravated, like, my mood would actually be affected. Like, even when I was hanging around certain people that were into certain things, like, before I even knew it and were even thinking about it, like, I started to adapt to their ways as well. You know what I mean? So the word and the description of what that is obviously empathy. And a person that has empathy is usually called an empathic person. So do you identify as being very empathic? Are you quickly moved or quickly sensitive to your environment or certain people that you may be around, or even just certain energies of certain spaces and places? Like, have you ever been a person that's ever walked into a room and it's like you could either feel very high in that room and could feel a good energy in it, or you could feel like a bad one right away? That's a huge sign of being empathic, and of course, being spiritually sensitive, which aligns with being intuitive, is the first sign that you will notice that if you have a gift, that you're able to feel, sense, know things. The second one is, do you have a deep sense of knowing on topics without your basic knowledge? So another thing that I noticed that would happen with me, like, I'll be talking to my friend. Say, for example, this is when I was younger, of course, before I actually really opened my gifts, and they would start talking about a certain person, and for some reason, automatically I would start picturing what they were wearing, or like I started to put like a description to their face, like without even really thinking about it. It was like there was like certain like dialogue and imagery that would start to play in my mind while having a conversation with this person. And sometimes, like, I would never really say anything. I would just kind of just keep it to myself. But the odd time I would like ask, like, oh, does this person look like this or this person look like that? And they'd be like, yeah, like, how'd you know? And I'd be like, I don't know. Like, you know what I mean? Like, certain things like that would actually end up happening. So does that happen to you? Do you find yourself in a place or in time where you're just have a deep knowing about something. It's like you just know it and you feel it in your gut and you just kind of just go with it. Or you get a certain imagery or an understanding on a topic and like it's never been discussed with you. That is the step number 2 as a sign that can actually show you that you most likely have an intuitive gift. The third one is, do you have dreams with very strong symbolism? So for me, I've always been a person that's had really profound dreams. I remember even being as small as a little girl, I used to have really intense, like, dreams that were like, they weren't just like rich in symbolism, but they were also dreams that had like a lot of dialogue or like a storyline that came to it. And there was obviously some kind of consistency within the dreams that I would always have. It was weird because, of course, when I was younger, I would have a lot of dreams. And then as I started opening up my gifts, I wasn't having dreams often. Actually, I didn't have dreams for like a good few years. I didn't really start dreaming heavily again until I had my son. You know what I mean? And I don't know if that comes with being a mother and that did something with, you know, my intuition or something like that. But there was a good minute there in a few years that I was actually not dreaming at all. And that's because I guess because I was open to my gifts and I knew how to get messages otherwise. So they didn't feel it was necessary for me, you know, wasting their energy, I guess, coming in my dream and trying to show me anything. So like, do you have really deep gifts? Do you actually have deep dreams? Do you have reoccurring dreams? Like, what is a common symbolism or thread that comes to a lot of your dreams? Usually the foundation of everything you always see in your dreams is it's like either something that is in your subconscious or there's something that is about your spirit that is obviously laid off in that. So for example, like I've lived in, I would say 5 to 6 homes since I lived in my childhood home. But for some reason, every single dream that I have, it always takes place in my childhood home. And I used to think like, okay, what is that about? Like, is it what, that I'm like still attached to my old home and I can't get over, you know, like I can't get past that I moved from where I lived. But it was actually not that. I actually, later on down the line, what I actually realized is that the reason why I would always have that dream is because that was the place that I felt the most comfortable in my life. The most happiest, the most sure of what direction of where my life was going, regardless of what. So every dream that has to do with, say, the theme of comfort, for example, or the theme of feeling safe, or the theme of feeling at home, would always take place in my childhood home. So that's a huge sign of obviously being intuitive. And it always sounds weird for me to say this, that you're saying like, okay, like how do certain symbolisms and certain dreams or whatever say that? It's because the reason why I say this is because when it comes to having an intuitive gift, there's always a way of how your guides communicate with you, right? And usually when your guides are communicating with you, they have a certain symbolism or a signature to how they display a message or a future event that is about to take place or a recurring dream. So pay attention to symbolism, and that usually kind of gives you the tapestry of your intuition, and if you have it, and exactly who your guides are as well. And also, of course, when expanding on dreams, have you had a few dreams, especially ones that are, you know, big dreams? You know what I mean? If there's like major things that have happened in your life, can you say that some of the dreams were, you know, predictions of that yet to come? That's also a huge sign and indicator that you're likely to have an intuitive gift. The next one is, are you affected by certain moon phases or planetary shifts? Now, if anybody knows me, and anyone knows my son, or anyone knows anyone in my home, anyone around me, everybody knows that if there's anything about Starre is not a person that sleeps often. Not only that, especially when it comes to waxing moons or full moons, I am a complete insomniac. And that's because, like, of course, my abilities are run by the moon, right? And the moon phases. So even when it comes to like how I like when it's not like necessarily an accuracy thing, but like especially on the full moon, I'm on fire. Like I don't have to think about it. I don't even have to pull. I don't have to pause. Like it would just come to me like that. But of course, on different phases, I'll find myself being that I have to pull a little bit more. But one thing that usually happens to people that are intuitively inclined or have an intuitive gift or are sensitive spiritually in ways is that during a waxing moon or a new moon, they start to notice that they start to get less sleep. They become more insomniatic. They become more tossy and turny. Sometimes even your eating habits tend to change where you either, I find that during, not even just me, but people that I know that are intuitive, during the new moon to the waxing moon, moving into the full, that their appetite usually gets a little bit more heightened around that time. Especially when it comes not just moon, but planetary shifts. Like right now, we're just ending the Mercury retrograde. It'll be ending tomorrow. Yeah, because as I put this up, this will be the 27th. When the Mercury retrograde starts to come in, I notice that my energy will start to shift. Like usually people that are intuitive will feel it 2 weeks before it actually goes retrograde because because of our abilities and our intuition, we see things that are behind the veils. We feel the shadow periods of those retrogrades. So usually when retrogrades start to come in, the most, I guess, strongest time where that planetary shift will have an effect on you is usually like 2 weeks before to a week before the actual retrograde happens, and 2 weeks after or a week after the retrograde goes direct. Okay. So another thing that I noticed that when a planet starts to go into retrograde, I start to feel anxiety. Like I start to get out of nowhere, like I could be perfectly fine. Everything that I could think of in my life, it could be going great, but I don't know, I'll just get this uncontrollable anxiety. And that's when, like, even when it starts to happen, right away, like, I don't even give into the anxiety. I go and I check my almanac, or I check my, I Google online and see when the next retrograde is, or what the planetary shifts or what planets are doing right now, because usually when that happens, is because my body and my energy is already sensing an energetical shift that's happening within the universe. So that's a huge indicator. Like, are you a person that can't sleep during the full moon or waxing phases? Do you notice that when there's certain planetary shifts, you either feel anxiety or certain things in your life start to get affected more on a profound level? That's another trait or sign that you obviously carry an intuitive gift because you're sensitive. Another thing that I do have, last but not least, have you been able to have visions, dreams, or just even picked up on things, at least a few major life events in your own life that actually came to pass the way that you foreseen it to be? And when I say this is, of course, before I actually opened up my gifts or even accepted my gifts at all, there were a lot of things that I would see and I would like tell my friends or my family. And, you know, even when I was saying it, I never really believed myself at the time. I was just, it's like almost like I felt like it was like verbal diarrhea. Like I just had to say what I saw and said what I felt. And obviously before I actually opened my gifts, there were like a number of things, or at least a few things that I could remember distinctively that were very big life events, I guess, that I actually either had like a vision, or it was just like a drop down download of information that happened, or even a dream. You know what I mean? That's like things that I would see. Like I remember when I guess let me think of a few. Okay, I used to go to this church, and it was by this neighborhood, because I used to live in Markham, Ontario. This is because I'm Canadian. And there was this neighborhood, and I would always look at this neighborhood across my church. And at this time, like, we didn't really have money to like afford a house or anything. But I was like about, I think like 9, or I think between the ages of 9 to like 12. And I just had this innate, like, strong feeling that I was going to move over there. And sure enough, like 7 years later, I remember even saying it to my mom. I have a feeling, I think I even said to my mom and my father, like, oh yeah, we should go look at those houses over there. Like, thinking that, not knowing that we didn't have any money, but thinking, yeah, like, oh, like, come on, like, there's nice houses, just go look at them. And sure enough, of course, 7 years later, my parents actually end up purchasing their first home in that very neighborhood that was across from that church. So that was, I guess, one. Of course, there's been like family deaths and stuff like that. There are family accidents that had happened. Even things like, for example, before I was, I think I was, say by the time I was age 9. By the age of 9, I already, because growing up, I only knew one of my grandparents, because only my maternal grandmother was alive. She was the only grandparent that was left out of all the grandparents. And I had dreams and visions of every single one of my grandparents. I've seen them before, even though I've never formally met them in person, much less even seen a picture. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's just a little bit of like an example of certain things that I experienced, but you got obviously comment below little things or visions that you have had or experiences you've had over your lifetime that probably lead to all the arrows and directions that you obviously have an intuitive gift. My son just woke up. Hi, boom boom. An intuitive gift. So, again, there's a number of different traits and different signs that may show you that you actually have a gift, but of course, we will leave that to another video, or you can actually just comment and talk about it in the description box. But I want to do more videos like this where I touch on certain topics or frequently asked questions from certain clients on like what their abilities are, how to do like a proper spiritual bath. Hashul. Okay. To have a proper spiritual bath, or something like that. Sorry. So if you have any questions or concerns, or if you would like to get a psychic reading with me, please hit me up on all my information that's in the description box, or either or, whether it be my email or it be on my social medias. You can also follow me on Instagram and Twitter. And that is it. So I do want to thank you so much for your time and rocking with me. May God bless you and the angels protect you. Good night.